This is Charlie Cohon. In this presentation, I will cover the highlights of line card profitability analysis. Reps have a lot in common with Olympic rowers. Just to qualify to compete, we have to be fast, agile, and impressive performers. But when it comes to line card profitability analysis, some of us forget what Olympic rowers know. To be winners, you have to take the boat out of the water once in a while to clean and wax the bottom. And before the rowers get back in the boat, they have to make sure that every one of them really still belongs on the team. Why do I say that reps often forget what Olympic rowers know? Because most reps seem to forget that they have to take the boat out of the water once in a while to clean and wax the bottom. What do reps do instead of boat maintenance? They row harder. What do reps do instead of replacing underperforming rowers? They row harder. What happens if the solution to every problem is row harder? Your rep firm underperforms and your principals suffer. Rowing harder, instead of solving the problems that drag down your rep firm's performance, is not the solution. It's a certain way to lose races. Losing isn't what gets us up in the morning, it's what keeps us up at night. So let's talk bluntly about how line card profitability analysis can keep your rep firm operating at peak performance. As an example, let's take a look at a rep firm with 15 principals. It does not get 1/15 of its income from each of its principals. Like most rep firms, a small number of principals are more than half that rep's commissions. This firm earns $530,000 of its $821,000 annual commission from 3 principals: Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. We will call these the primary principals. The rest of the rep's commissions trickle in from the remaining 12 principals. We will call these the secondary principals. The secondary principals include some strong performers and some not strong performers. Regularly evaluating the secondary principals to make sure the right rowers are in your boat is what separates world-class, successful reps from reps who can barely keep their rep firms afloat. Now I will use this example to demonstrate how to perform line card profitability analysis. We have established that Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie are the rep's primary principals, and that the rest of the principals are the rep's secondary principals. Because it would be rare for a rep firm to drop one of its primary principals, our line card profitability analysis will focus on these secondary principals, Delta through Oscar. These are principals that are bringing in between $50,000 and $5,000 in commission annually. The next step is to rank these secondary principals, Delta through Oscar, based on 2 criteria. Number 1, how much income are they bringing in? And number 2, how well they fit with the primary principals, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. To rank the secondary principals based on how much commission income they bring in, we create a chart that ranks secondary principals by commission income. The range on this chart is from 0 to the largest income from any secondary principal. In this example, the largest income from any secondary principal is $50,000 from Delta. For clarity, we break that $0 to $50,000 range into 3 equal groups: the top third, the middle third, and the bottom third. Of course, there's more to this analysis than just ranking our secondary principals by income. Reps thrive when they can sell as many products as possible from their line cards to all their customers. A secondary principal that you can sell to all your customers for your primary principals is more valuable than a secondary principal that you can't sell to any customer for your primary principals. In this example, we can sell Delta to all our customers for our primary principals, and we can't sell Golf to any customers for our primary principals. All things being equal, Delta is more valuable to this rep firm than Golf because it fits the customer base for the primary principals better. So now we have 2 kinds of rankings for our secondary principals. The first ranking is commission income, and the second ranking is how well each of our secondary principals fits with our primary principals. Let's take those 2 kinds of information and put them into a matrix. As you remember, we broke our secondary principals into 3 groups based on whether they were in the top third of commission income, the middle third of commission income, or the bottom third of commission income. We label the vertical axis to break our matrix into these 3 groups. As you also remember, we have 3 primary principals, so a secondary principal could fall into any one of 4 categories. Fits with none of our primary principals, fits with 1 of our primary principals, fits with 2 of our primary principals, or fits with all 3 of our primary principals. We label the horizontal axis to cover those 4 possibilities. Based on the commission income from each principal and the fit of each secondary principal with the primary principals, every one of the secondary principals will fit into one of these 12 boxes. Now let's talk about what each of these 12 boxes will tell us about the secondary principals. Bottom left-hand corner is a secondary line that fits with none of the primary lines and brings in $2, $5, $10,000 a year. If a line doesn't fit with any of your primary lines and it brings in very little income, this is a no-brainer. This is a line that you probably should think very hard about resigning. At the top of the same column comes what I call a danger secondary principle. This is a principle that does not fit with any of your primary lines and brings in a good amount of income, perhaps $40,000 or $50,000 a year. The sales manager for this principle is probably going to look at your line card and eventually realize that when you're making calls on behalf of any of your primary principals, you can't sell any of his or her products. This is a line that you may very well lose if you can't do something to change that scenario. In between the two is a swift action line. This is also a line that has nothing in common with your three primary principles, but it brings in less income than the danger line, perhaps $20,000 or $30,000. Obviously, it's more important to deal with the $40,000 to $50,000 line at risk than it is to with the $20,000 to $30,000 line at risk, but it still requires swift action. Once you've dealt with the first column, you start on the second column. The bottom box in this column is 6-month probation. What that means is it's more important to deal with all the principles in the first column than it is to deal with a line in the second column. So this is a 6-month probation line in that within 6 months you need to circle back and deal with this. Again, this is a line that is only complementary to one of your primary lines, a line that probably doesn't make sense for you to retain, something you need to think about very hard. Just above that is a line that is complementary to one of your primary lines and brings in $20,000 to $30,000 a year in income. This is a line that you need to address within 12 months, a little less urgent than the box below it. Above that is a line that is complementary to one of your primary lines and brings in $40,000 to $50,000 a year. This is a line that you are still at risk of losing when the sales manager looks at your line card and realizes that there is only one of your three primary lines that is complementary to his or her line. When a line is complementary to two of your three primary lines, it doesn't have the same degree of urgency as the two boxes to the left of it. This line in the bottom row of the third column does not require the same immediate attention, but should be looked at because it is not bringing in a tremendous amount of money and may still be something that you should look at possibly resigning simply because it may burn a lot of your daylight for the amount of income that comes in. If a line is complementary to two of your three primary lines, you certainly want to retain that line if it's bringing in $20,000 to $30,000 a year. So this is a box that we will call retain and monitor. And once you have a line that is complementary to two of your three primary lines, and it is bringing in significant income, perhaps $40,000 or $50,000, this is a line that is profitable. You want to do everything you can to retain that line. If you have a line that is complementary to all three of your primary lines, this is a line you want to nurture, even if it doesn't bring in a lot of income. If it's complementary to all three of your primary lines, it's something you can sell every time you're making a call on behalf of your primary lines. You want to try and nurture it and move it into a higher income bracket. A line that is complementary to all three of your primary lines is a line you certainly want to work on growing. And finally, a line that is complementary to all three of your primary lines and bringing in $40,000 or $50,000 a year is ideal. This is the kind of line you want. This is the box that you want to try and move all of the other lines into. Now that we've done line card profitability analysis on our example rep firm, just to get some experience using the matrix, let's look at how our example rep filled out the matrix. Delta is complementary to all three of the rep's primary lines and bringing in $50,000 a year. That puts it in the right-hand column for three lines and the top row for $50,000 in income. Echo is complementary with two of the rep's three primary lines and brings in $47,000 a year. That puts it in this box. Foxtrot is complementary with one of the rep's primary lines and brings in $46,000 a year, putting it into the risky box. Golf is not complementary with any of the rep's primary lines and brings in $40,000 a year, putting it into the danger box. Hotel is complementary with one of the rep's three primary lines and brings in $25,000 a year. That puts this into the 12-month probation box. India is complementary with two of the rep's three primary lines and brings in $24,000 a year, putting it into the retain and monitor box. Juliet is complementary with all three of the rep's primary lines and brings in $23,000 a year, putting it into the grow box. Kilo is not complementary with any of the rep's primary lines and brings in $22,000 a year. That puts it into the swift action box. Lima is complementary with one of the rep's 3 primary lines and brings in $5,000 a year. That puts it into the 6-month probation box. Mike is complementary with 2 of the rep's 3 primary lines and brings in $4,000 a year. That puts it into the 12-month probation box. November is not complementary with any of the rep's 3 primary lines and brings in $3,000 a year. That puts it into the no-brainer box. And finally, Oscar is complementary with all 3 of the rep's primary lines, brings in $2,000 a year, which puts it into the nurture box. Now that we've done line card profitability analysis on our example rep firm, let's take a look at some of the tools you'll need to make this same analysis of your own rep firm's secondary lines. In our example, the rep firm doing this evaluation started by filling out this worksheet. Primary principals, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, went on the top row, and then data on the firm's secondary principals went on the rows below the primary principals. This gave the rep the information needed to complete the matrix we just filled in. All these forms and the instructions to fill them out are included in a manual we'll discuss at the end of this presentation. Of course, the matrix is a good start in understanding the profitability of your principals, but you can't make decisions about whether to keep or resign a line based only on the matrix you just filled out. There are always going to be some intangibles to consider. Included in the manual is a list of some of the most common intangibles to consider before you make your decision. Things like, does this line have more future potential than its current income suggests? Is it a door opener that gets you into lines that otherwise might not see you? Does this line provide better than average sales support? Is it easy to do business with or have unusually competitive prices? Are they extremely responsive to your requests or flexible for customers' special needs? Do they always ship on time? Do they have unusually high quality? Once you sell it, is customer maintenance extremely low for repeat orders? These intangibles are all the things you'll have to take into consideration as you weigh the decision whether to keep or resign a particular principal. Once you've completed line card profitability analysis for all the secondary principals on your line card, you are like the Olympic rower who has pulled their boat out of the water to clean and wax its hull. You have started the process of managing your rep firm so its sales force can work at peak efficiency. That seemed like a lot of work, but don't think that once this is completed, you've got the hardest part of the job behind you. The paperwork was the easy part. The hard part is resigning a principal, even if you know that principal is holding your rep firm back. But as a manager, it's your job to make the hard choices. I hope that by giving you a process to follow, you now have the tools you need to make those hard choices, so you can focus on the things that get you out of bed in the morning instead of the things that keep you up at night. For more information, and for the forms used in this presentation, MANA members can download the 18-page Line Card Profitability Analysis Manual on the MANA website, manaonline.org, or email me. My email is ccohon@manaonline.org.